Here we have a typical GCSE question that's asking you to estimate a value from the numbers that you've been given here. Okay. Now the key thing to remember when we're estimating is that each value needs to be rounded to one significant figure. Some people think estimating questions is just a guess, but there's a little bit more to it than that. Right, one significant figure. Now the significant figure is the number at the front, okay, because that holds the most significant value, or the biggest value. So when we're looking here at 38.3, the significant figure here is the 3, and that's in the tens column. So we're going to round this value to the nearest 10. Now when we're rounding, the second value, the second digit, is also important because that's going to tell us whether we're going to round up, okay, which means that the number will go up, or we're going to round down, which means the number at the front will stay the same. So going back to this value here, 38.3, the significant figure is in the tens column, so we're going to round 38.3 to the nearest 10, and that means that that will round up to 40. In this second value here, we've got 51.7. The 5 is the significant figure, and that's also in the tens column. So we're going to round this 51.7 to the nearest 10, so that will be 50. The value underneath, the significant figure here is the 2, and that's in the units column. So 2.1 will round to the nearest unit, which will be 2. Right, and if we can successfully do that, that means we've got 1 mark so far in this question. To get the second mark, what we actually need to do is to calculate this top part of the question, so 40 times 50. Now it doesn't really matter which technique you use for that, but if we do 40 times 50, 4 times 5 is 20, and if you use the technique of adding 2 zeros on because you've got 2 zeros in the question, okay, you'll end up with 2,000 divided by 2. Okay. Now for the third mark, it's fairly obvious what we need to do here. We actually have to calculate what 2,000 divided by 2 is, and again, that should be fairly straightforward. 2,000 divided by 2 equals 1,000. And that should get you all of the marks for this type of question. Okay, in this example, the same thing. We need to remember that when we're estimating, we round each value to one significant figure. So looking here, slightly more complicated this question. This first figure here is in the units column, so we're going to round that to the nearest unit. So that's going to become 6. This second value here, the significant figure, is in the hundreds column, so that will round to the nearest 100, so that's going to be 300. And underneath here, the significant figure is in the tenths column, so we're going to round to the nearest 10. Remembering the rule for all of these, that if the number after the value that we're looking at, the significant figure, is 5 or more, we round up. If it's not, we keep the figure that's there. All right, so what we've got here is 6 times 300 divided by 0.5, okay? And now we've all got a mark if we've managed to do that. As with the other one, there's our first mark. For our second mark, what we need to do is actually calculate, do the calculation at the top here. Okay, so we're going to do 6 times 3, which is 18, and then add the 2 zeros on, and that's still going to be divided by 0.5. Okay, so we've got 2 marks so far. This is where some people slip up, all right, because they think that if you divide by 0.5, it's like dividing by 2, so you're actually halving it. But when you divide by 0.5, you're going to increase this value. It's like timesing by 2. Okay, so if we have 1,800 divided by 0.5, the actual answer we're going to get is 3,600. Okay, so that's a brief introduction into estimating. Remember, the key point here that you must always remember is each value you round to one significant figure.